Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast, Mage Site. I'm Drew.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Chris.
And today we are coming with one of our media episodes. And the movie that we watched this week is The Craft. Very, very 90s nostalgia. So, I've actually seen The Craft a few times throughout my life. I haven't seen it in decades, though.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. And you've never seen it.
I've seen it once.
Oh, you saw it once? Now?
Yes.
Okay. He had never seen it before.
Yes.
And of course, there are going to be a ton of spoilers for anyone who has not seen the movie yet. So you could go watch it real quick and then come back. So let's jump into it.
Mage the Ascension, the Awakening's parent incarnation, is 3 years older than this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
It was made in early 90s.
Yeah, Mage the Ascension came out in 1993.
Okay.
The World of Darkness game line was late 80s, early 90s. Mage the Awakening exists as an attempt to reboot that in the early 2000s.
Okay. Cool. So, the first time we see our protagonist, Sarah, she is moving from one part in California over to where our film is taking place. On her travel there, it's very wet and rainy, kind of stormy, which I guess is alluding to what's going to happen. But when she looks out the car window on their drive, one of the things that she sees that the camera focuses on is a very big snake. So that's one of the first images that we get with the film. And then when Sarah is at her home and they are unpacking, some man who seems like he's homeless, I'm assuming, just is there in her house and she, holding a snake, asks her, "Hey, I found this outside. Do you want it?" And she turned around and she's like, "Who is this crazy man with a snake?" And he acted like she was overreacting. And Sarah is screaming because there's some random man in her house holding a snake. And her father comes and the man runs away. And I think he dropped the snake or whatever, But he runs away and her father's like, "Man, what was that?" And then Sarah screams because the snake is at his feet and he hits it with we think he hits it with a poker. They kind of, go, switch scenes before that, but it startles him and he goes to hit the snake. One of the themes running through this movie is snakes, or what do you call that when it's sort of like not an influence, but like when something is influencing or is alluding to something.
You have it magically?
Not just magically, but in writing in general.
The trope that comes in mind with this type of stuff is like Chekhov's gun, where you're setting up, you're providing a early on clue to get it in the audience's mind, and then have a payoff with it later.
That's kind of what it is. A snake is a symbol that's running through the movie that we keep saying.
Magically speaking, I think you'd call that an omen.
Yeah. Magically speaking, I would say the snake is an omen.
Yes.
In this movie.
One of the interesting aspects to the structure of the story is everything circles around a ritual done in the middle of the film, and that event ripples both forward and backwards in time, which is interesting. I think the snake is the first ripple that you actually notice.
I haven't thought about it like that, but I like that. I do. I like that. Okay.
Fate does stuff like that.
The next time the snake symbol comes up is when Sarah is hanging out with Bonnie, Nancy, and Rochelle for the first time. They're kind of trying to befriend her, trying to make her their fourth in their coven. And while they're out, they had just left this occult shop when that same homeless man with a snake sees Sarah and he's like, "I need to talk to you. I had a dream about you and you were dead in the dream." And she's terrified and she runs away and runs across the street, and he continues to follow her and tragically gets hit by a car. So we don't end up seeing him anymore. But what did he want to tell her? What dream did he have? And what was his connection? I really wish they went into that more into the film. There's one other time that we see a snake, but it's not I don't really know if it's an omen, but I'm going to throw it in there just to have, every snake moment in there. And that is when the women do a ritual where they call to the four corners. They have symbols of the four corners. They have a bird, a fish, a butterfly, and a snake. So that is in one of the rituals that they did. And Nancy was very defensive of
which one had the snake?
Nancy. The next time that the snakes come into play is after the coven has a falling out. Sarah has some issues with some of the spells that they've done and the repercussions, the effects of the spells on the people around them and even on themselves. Right. This causes a falling out between her and the other three. And in the climax of the story, Nancy uses snakes and other creepy crawlies like spiders and maggots and basically anything you can think of that squiggles on the ground. There might even have been rats in there at one point. I can't remember. There were, yeah. To keep Sarah in the house. And whether or not that is a mental spell, which is probably a mental spell because they all just disappear, so they obviously weren't really there. And then the last time the snake is seen or used is when Sarah is finally taking the power and fighting back against Nancy. And she turns... Basically, Nancy's whole body starts to become bugs and her fingers become snakes. So that's the last time they're actually
pushing
used.
her magic back onto her.
Yeah, basically, yeah, pushing her magic back onto her. Mm-hmm.
My initial thoughts on that is how much a lot of these attack are entirely psychic. There's a lot of mind being used. The rituals they performed brought strong connections between all of the individuals, so it was easy to use that connection to influence her mind.
The rituals did seem to connect them in the mind. Nancy does say at one point when she notices Sarah's pulling away from them that she knows she wants to leave the group. And Sarah's like, I've never said that. And Nancy goes, yes, but you've thought it. Suggesting that she can read Sarah's thoughts.
Right. There's some sort of telepathy going on.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that stuff is giving me Mastigos vibes. The abilities to connect to others from distances, the intrusion into one's privacy, making people see what they want, what you want them to see, and controlling their perspective. What's also interesting is in that final confrontation, that same power is used against Nancy as she experiences that kind of psychic control.
In horror and terror,
Yeah.
I think that the snake as a fate omen is interesting. So what fate spell in Mage would constitute that? Like,
one spell that came to mind, at least for part of it, was Swarm of Locusts.
Oh, because of all the bugs.
Yeah, all the stuff that had, like the snakes and the rats and everything.
Now, would the man with the snake, I guess that would be different.
The spell at the end.
Though that ended up being more of a mind effect because it vanished the moment they let it go.
Yeah, that is true.
If you wanted to create them like temporarily, like so they only exist for that moment and then vanish, you would need then it would be life.
Or it was Swarm of Locusts and then a life unmaking spell to vanish them all.
Here's I think if I recall, the thing about Swarm of Locusts is that it doesn't make the bugs. It like they happen to arrive. There just happens to be that swarm. This is the moment that freak crazy thing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the thing about fate is that in order for crazy things to happen, things have to be setting up beforehand. So when you create a destined moment of some specific thing, then there's no way that you won't be able to see that it affects forward and backward in time. Following the lessons of the Mysterium, the fact that magic is alive, it's actually a living thing, it would take on, when there are moments like that, it's going to take on symbolic shape pointing to that event. That especially happens with like high fate spells because you rearrange everything to make that specific thing happen. I mean, right now is the moment that lava bursts through the floor. Fate 5 can do that. But, there's going to be, back in time, there's going to be evidence of it coming. Normally, you're not going to have actual mystical signs unless the thing is tied with a literal destiny. But destinies also can be created with Fate 5. It could be a consequence of the ritual, because they didn't just do a ritual, it was a summoning. And if they got the boon of the thing they summoned, that boon could come with a destiny attached to it. So that could be what's going on.
Cool.
Yeah, I like the Snick. I think is one of the really evocative elements to the magic, and that they care about symbols in that show.
There are several things in this movie that I wish they took more time to delve into.
Mm-hmm.
And the man with the snake is one of them. I want to know more about what he was warning her about.
I would have liked to see other external forces, like he himself can be killed at that moment, but having an additional parallel plot line continuing that. Maybe if it could have been rather than a one movie, if we turned it into a mini series or a one season show, you would have had time to explore that kind of stuff.
That's exactly what I was talking to Chris about this morning, is that I would love to rewrite this as a mini series, because I feel like each character has trauma in their life that flavors the spells that they do and the way they react to them. And I feel that diving into those and more of that magical world element, because they brought it in, but they didn't delve into it enough, that, I would love to write it as a mini series.
Right.
At least 8 to 10 episodes.
There's elements of the script that feel less polished than other parts. Nancy deserved more, a little more polish and a little more. The story wants Sarah to be the hero so badly that it doesn't spend enough time polishing up Nancy.
Or Rochelle, honestly.
Oh no,
Rochelle
she's underused.
Rochelle's way underused.
Bonnie is perfect for her role in the story. She might be underserved with a longer narrative. The other ones have potential and like polish. I just see Bonnie as a little one-noted.
I'm curious to know what happened to her that she got those scars and those burns. Like, what? There's trauma there.
You're right. Yeah, like
that affects the way she handles herself and would affect the way the magic affects. Like, I would be curious about, what is that trauma? Before things go bad, the 4 friends become close, of course. The fun and games moments during the story where they do some casual magic and we kind of just get to see their personalities and how and why they click. The first one is when they're first notice Sarah. Bonnie first notices Sarah because for some reason she thought that doing magic in the middle of class was okay or wasn't going to be noticed. She decides, she's bored. They're in French class and Sarah is balancing her pencil on its lead on her desk. And she lets go of the pencil and it stays upright. And then it starts twisting, like it's screwing itself into the desk. Matter, forces.
Spirit. You have spirit high enough. You can actually literally ask the spirit to do weird things.
Yep.
Fate,
I suppose,
could have it just be that the tip is just flat enough and just wide enough that you can balance it.
Yeah, but it wouldn't cause it to then twist. That's what makes it not fate.
That's where, for me, whenever something's moving, it's forces. It's forces, what? Apprentice? Yeah.
Well, you're looking at telekinetic kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually disciple level magic. You can, with a rulings, take the energy that's already there and do something with it. But if you're trying to apply kinetic energy, you basically amplify it in order to move it. You actually need to increase the energy available, or take the energy that's there and increase it. That would require a disciple level effect.
Cool. Okay.
Matter, apprentice matter. Compelling isn't enough because compelling can only make an object do something it already would do or can do. Like, a light switch going up or down.
A car turning on.
I imagine you could get a pencil to maybe write something and then fall down. But the whole like standing up, and it's so unnatural even for an object you're using, it just wouldn't happen.
Unless it's a screwdriver.
Well, it wouldn't be a compelling matter spell, but you could do
right. Ruling makes sense.
Yeah, you could even just make it balanced like a top, and then you could spin it.
Yes. There are matter spell effects like Lodestone that do some weird stuff, like makes objects of a similar kind of naturally fall towards each other. So maybe I'm not being imaginative. Maybe there's some rationale to compelling. I don't know. It's not changing any of the properties of the pencil. It is still just a pencil writing. So I could be wrong.
Of course, it's the 90s, and they're having a sleepover. So they have to play light as a feather, stiff as a board. What you would do is you'd have a friend lie on the floor, and then the other friends at the sleepover would all surround them from either side and head to toe, depending on how many people are there. You take only 2 fingers from each hand, your pointer finger and your middle finger, and you put them under the body of your friend, and everybody else does it at the same time, and then you start to chant, light as a feather, stiff as a board, light as a feather, stiff as a board, as you raise your arms and say, light as a feather, stiff as a board, light as a feather, stiff as a board. And you can lift your friend with just 2 fingers, and they are light. It's not heavy at all. Right. It feels like they're floating. In this movie, she actually was. They took their fingers away, and she stayed up. And there's a funny moment, where she's like, what's going on? Oh my goodness, how do I get down? And I was thinking that the second she was like, oh my goodness, that she should have fallen because she's no longer concentrating. But I have to remember, she's not the only one doing this spell. The other 3 were also doing it. So just her lack of concentration wouldn't have broke the spell. But when Bonnie's mother comes in, the spell is broken. Rochelle hits the ground and chaos a little.
Yeah. So I mean, I believe the game works just because of distribution. Like when you probably need a certain number of people per body, right?
I don't think we're talking about the game. We're talking about the magic.
Oh. Yeah, whatever.
No, it works through chanting and mutual mental connection.
In some ways it does, since everyone has to be in sync in order to make it work. So
on that note, forces?
Yeah, levitation. Is that, I can't remember if levitation's 2 or 3.
Anything that's floating or moves, to me, it's forces.
If you're manipulating gravity, that's disciple. If you're trying to think, can you rule energy in a way? Because I'm thinking if you would use forces to push someone into the air with like a ruling effect, isn't that just like blowing wind?
I guess so. Yeah, but there's no wind.
No, there's no wind. So that it's definitely strong. To me, that's effect is manipulating gravity, and that would be disciple forces 3. Probably a perfecting spell. Alternatively, if you want to go matter to hold someone in place, you can basically change the density and the structure of the matter, or even the weight, in order to keep her where she is, so that like the perfectly holding her in place. Also, I think you could probably manipulate pressure around a body in order to like hold someone in place. And I'm not sure if pressure falls under forces or matter.
Probably either one.
Yeah.
You can do the effects different ways, I guess.
There are a few others that I might consider, but they would be strange uses of those arcana. Time. Making them fall at an infinitely slow rate.
Yeah.
Time 3, I think.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, there's one.
There you go.
They do one more spell during their getting to know each other and everything is kind of going okay time. And that is when they're hanging out at Nancy's house and they're in her bedroom and they are trying out some glamour spells. And Sarah changes her eye color from blue to hazel, and then changes her hair color from brown to blonde.
So there's some basic spells for that kind of glamour. First, mind spells change what someone perceives as reality. Then there is life veiling. It can make you appear to be as if you were someone else.
Life is the one that comes into my head, of course.
There are some other alternatives. You could, using Prime 5, say this is blonde, and people would be like, they would treat it as if it were blonde.
Just believe it.
It's basically the same thing as a mind spell.
Yeah, it is.
More or less. Just believe it.
There is some weirdness, and that is a spell that is both costly to cast and has unintended consequences. If you were to do that as a spell, when it ends, if someone looks back on the photographs, they could tell, like, that wasn't blonde. Why did I think that was blonde? You know, and so like sleepers might have a integrity break after the fact.
Yeah.
Time can make your hair look old.
She made her hair look blonde.
You change your hair to match what your hair looks in a different timeline in which you had dyed it.
Okay.
That's that's time 4.
Yeah, that's a lot for such a little change.
Well, and that's the thing. Any arcana can, if you think hard enough, can do things that other arcana do, but like they are either more limited in how they do it, or there's just some that are just easier to do direct effects with.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Fate's a good example of that. A Fate can do anything, but if you suffer the consequences of it.
That's all the fun, jovial, let's get to know each other magic that they do. After this, it's going to be very serious. Well, I don't know.
Serious.
It's going to get more serious. This is where they do the big spells. To initiate each other into this coven, to make this coven official, they cast a spell. They go out into, it looks like the country. They take a nice bus ride out into the country. So they're alone in nature. And they each hold an athame to their chest.
Athame is a ritual dagger.
Yes. And say, I enter this circle with perfect love and perfect trust. And then they'd kiss the initiate on the cheek. And they'd go around the circle, and they each take turns doing this to one of them. And then Nancy raises the athame to the sky and says, as above, and then stabs it into the earth and says, so below, closing their initiation.
Which is a reference to the Emerald Scroll, a famous book of magic.
Cool. Then to celebrate this new coven, they do a spell that they each get to take part in. So they sit around in a circle, they take that athame, they poke each of their fingers, and they drip the blood into a cup, and then they pour wine into it. And the spell starts with Rochelle. She picks up the cup, and the spell she casts is to not hate others who hate her, especially that racist bitch, Laura, whatever her last name is, who is her bully in school. And then she takes a drink from the cup. I don't feel they did enough for this. Her spell is beautiful, I think. It's a lovely kind of selfless spell, and I don't really see how it affected her negatively or positively in the movie.
She's given the evil stepsister treatment in the story, and she doesn't deserve it.
Her and Bonnie both get that.
Yeah. Frankly, our heroine does more mean things than she does.
Yeah, she does. I mean, she feels bad about it afterwards, and that's one of the things she brings up to the group about going too far and how the spells are affecting people. But yeah, Rochelle's spell is a good one to not have anger in her heart and to feel and understand for the people who are mean to her.
Yeah, this is the one of the first elements in the story, which in my view is unfortunately kind of like anti-magic, in the sense that if you use magic in this way, you're going to turn into a bad person. Unfortunately, I feel that there should have been either we should have seen more good in Rochelle, or we should have seen a better reason for her to have. Like, I would have liked to see her pushing back against Nancy, even if she was going along with it, like to show that she was still like that she wanted to She was reluctant in it, but it feels like for some reason she just decided to be a petty bitch at the end of the day, and that's inconsistent with the kind of spell that she just cast, which unfortunately makes her inconsistent.
I will say that in the climax, she is the one who does start pushing back. But
yeah, she's the one who actually leaves. She gets the message, and the other goes with her, which is nice. But like after the ways they were tormenting a friend, that's a little too late.
So Rochelle's first spell wasn't vindictive. In fact, it was the heart opening, being able not to let anger rule her, basically. But they're teenagers, so they still wanted to teach Laura a lesson. So one day when Sarah was walking down the hallway, she passed Laura and she aggressively rips a piece of hair or some hair out of her head. And, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I saw a bug, but of course she didn't. And Laura knew that. Later that night, Sarah braids that piece of blonde hair of Laura's into Rochelle's hair. And Rochelle asks her, so what's going to happen to Laura? And Sarah said, well, as long as she leaves you alone, nothing. Now, of course, she wasn't going to leave her alone. And where she likes to tease her the most is during swimming class at school. And when Rochelle was up on the diving board, she made one of her nasty comments. And Rochelle just smiles. And then Laura takes off her bathing cap. And some of her hair comes with it. And throughout the rest of the movie, she's slowly losing her hair. And there's even a moment where she's crying in the showers and Rochelle comes upon her and Laura's like, what did I do to deserve this? Which I thought was the oddest comment to say to the woman that you've been bullying your entire life, but okay. And in that moment, there was a weird thing where Rochelle's reflection, when she's watching Laura have this breakdown, her reflection in the mirror moves before she does. So there's something like that's showing that there's something already kind of off with her and what's going on, which is kind of foreshadowing that the spells are negatively affecting the young women who are doing them as well. But that spell, what would you call that spell?
It has elements of shared fate in that what happens to one person happens to another. Their hair, they combine the hairs together, which is obviously why the hair itself was the way it manifested. So you see a symbolic connection in the magic of hair to hair. Just like she plicked off one hair, all of the other hairs are slowly getting plicked off. To me, there's an element of that falls under spells like shared fate, though what we're seeing is sort of more of a hex.
Yeah, definitely a hex.
Within the rules for fate, there are status effects that are occasionally attached to a spell, and I imagine that this is something similar. So, there's also another element of the spell is it's sort of a shielding effect. Or there's a condition that was applied only if this person does something negative to me, this other effect puts into place. Using mage rules, I imagine it's a spell that when you cast it, you choose a condition, and if that condition is met, it's the same thing with because oath spells work similar. Then this hex would then apply to this status condition would apply to the target.
I would definitely say it's a fate spell. That's what comes into my head. And I know there is a 3 dot or 4 dot. Maybe it's a 2 dot, but I feel like it's a 3 dot.
Yeah, you could slightly rewire some oath spells to work a similar way. This could even be built as sort of a ward of sorts, so even as low as maybe a 2 dot effect, maybe with some extra reach thrown in.
Cool. Okay.
Death cause there isn't nutrients going to keeping the hair around. You put a death spell on the head, and the hair will fall off.
Cool. So many different ways. I like Fate the best, of course, but it's nice to hear the different ones because every mage can figure it out. Next in the circle comes Sarah's spell. So Rochelle passes the cup on to Sarah. Sarah says,
to love myself more and to allow myself to be loved by others, especially Chris Hooker.
Yep. Which she recognizes as a bit on the pathetic side, but, they're teenagers. Now, her spell works pretty much from the get-go.
Yep.
The next day in school, they're sitting in, I'm not sure what class it is. I think it's French, And he keeps turning back and looking at her. And then, because they're at a Catholic school, when they're going to Mass, he sheepishly, he tries a couple of times and finally gets up to her and is like, hey, I'm sorry for being an asshole, and I'll tell all my friends I was an asshole, And she's like, cool, here, hold my books and Bonnie's books. Like, he'll do anything that she asks him to, and sits with them in Mass, and his friends notice, like, dude, what are you doing? You're acting like you're a zombie. Like, what the heck? Now, I wish they did more with this. Because, he shows up now and again with his obsession, but I wish they showed it more. The next time he shows up is outside of her bedroom window when he's throwing rocks at it. And then he's like, I love you, and I've never loved anyone besides my mom and a puppy, and I can't stop thinking about you, and dangers of love spells. I wish we had a little bit more obsession before we got to that point. It's another reason why miniseries delve more into these things.
Uh-huh.
And it was after this point that she was getting pretty nervous about how this was affecting Chris. And they go back to the occult shop because, that's where they get all their accoutrements. And she asks for the wisdom of the witch who runs the shop. She cast this love spell and she wanted to know how to dispel a love spell. And the witch said, unfortunately, once you open the gate, it's open. You have to let it run its course, which is terrifying.
Yeah, it's a good opener to talk about wisdom. Casting a spell, because it changes things, you have to be deliberate. You have to take responsibility for the things that you do. And Sarah's love spell was definitely an act of hubris, playing with someone just because she could.
Mm-hmm.
The actual effect here, looking at the way he's behaving, I think emotional urging, basically just enhancing someone's emotions. It doesn't control their mind, but it, encourages them to think and operate certain direct emotional direction.
That would be a life spell?
No, that's a mind spell.
Mind spell.
Mine too. You can do something similar with life, but with life, you're working with the body. Basically, you intensify the physiological response in the individual. You make, even making someone say, have the fall in love experience, having that physiological response. Other types of magic aren't well fitted. I think the closest you could have to having the effect would be a spirit spell, in which case a romance, the spirit of the feelings, is either encouraged or bloomed.
I can see that, yeah.
Or even you create a spirit of romance to attach to the person with some higher spirit magic. So, you could influence someone subtly in that direction.
I like that. I mean, I do think it's probably more the mind spell, but I like the idea of a spirit of romance that your spell created this specific spirit to attach to that person to do that,
Matter, you could in an indirect way. Basically, you use matter, matter 5, so creation matter, to make a drug that seeps through someone's skin and cause them to have the effects that you want.
Fate spell to cause events to transpire that would have him fall in love with her.
Yeah.
Or a prime spell to make it true that he's in love with her.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
That one has.
He probably wouldn't act the way he was with that one. He would just be confused.
He would, yeah. He'd be wrestling with because that
confused why he does.
Yeah,
because he doesn't love her.
It's like a thought he can't get out of his head.
I love you, and I don't know why. I can't stop thinking about you, and this is crazy because, we don't know each other. Actually, that's the whole thing, is we don't know each other well enough.
Yeah.
Even Sarah, you don't know him well enough to want him to want you. Well, no, that's not true. That is not true. To want him to want you, yeah, no, you don't have to know them for very long. It's the fact that he was so mean. So the next part of the spell is what I was afraid of, and So Sarah was having a hard time. She has confronted her friends that what we're doing seems to be going astray a bit. Personalities, the way it's affecting Chris and everything. And her and Chris get together because she needs someone to talk to, and she's talking to him about her issues. And the spell does not make a genuine connection possible, and he ends up getting very physical with her. But she was able to get away, of course, and she ran to Rochelle's for moral support, and the other two friends show up and are very upset. Nancy takes it very, very badly. Her and Chris have a bad past.
Yeah.
That's my thing about the love spell. I was waiting for something like that to happen. Now, granted, I know I've seen this movie before, but it's been years. But especially when the older witch said, you just have to let it run its course. I was like, run its course to what? How is he going to get her out of his system? Like, this can only go poorly if she doesn't, like, the jealousy that's probably involved. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
The next in the circle is Bonnie. The cup gets passed to her. And before she drinks, she says that she wishes to be as beautiful outside as she is in.
To take the power to become beautiful outside as well as in.
Mm-hmm. Now, Bonnie's thing is she has these burn scars all over the upper part of her body, her arms, it looks like her neck and her chest area. And because of that, she wears a lot of baggy clothes and clothes that cover her all the time. And they've been going and getting some medical stuff done to try and get these scars removed. And some of it looks extremely painful. Her spell also takes a bit of time to work. In fact, the night that Sarah is braiding Laura's blonde hair into Rochelle's hair, Bonnie and Nancy are sitting by the fireplace at the foot of the bed. And Nancy is holding her hands over Bonnie's bare back, like she's trying to give her magic. And Bonnie is saying to Minnow, what?
Minnow, the fish?
The god.
The minnow fish?
Yeah, the minnow fish. To please take her scars. To please take her scars. What else did we write down everything she says there?
No.
Okay. And the next time
take my scars, make me beautiful outside as well as in.
Okay. Please take my scars. Make me beautiful outside as well as in. And she keeps on saying that over and over. The next time we see her at the doctor's office, her scars slough off her body. It looks a lot like peeling. It looked a lot to me like a peeling suntan. That's the image I got. And they just came right off. And her self-confidence is boosted. She's wearing, shorter clothes, showing off her arms and neck and everything. And she becomes aggressively flirtatious.
Actually, removing scars like that, regenerating tissue is a life effect.
Most definitely a life effect.
The only other account I could think of is something like using time to speed up the healing process.
Okay. Try and see the truth under the scars.
There's a potential with death to remove death from the tissue to restore it to an older state.
Mm-hmm. So when the cup is passed to Nancy, she asks to take into herself all of the power of Manon.
Mm-hmm. Or Manon, whatever she pronounces it.
As we go through the story, we see how Sarah's spell's working and how Bonnie's spell works with taking off her scars and everything. But Nancy's spell hasn't really worked. She's not getting the power that she wants and she needs. The first time we see her actually use the power after the spell, really use power, is when she went home to her mother and stepfather, who he's one gross dude. He comes on to her, and is verbally abusive to her mom. And she gets so angry that when she yells at him, the electricity kind of things spark up, the lights, stuff, and there's sparks and everything, and things go dead. And then he starts having a heart attack. And she's staring at him, and you can tell she's giving him the heart attack, which really creeped me out when they're in the ambulance, and you see him having the heart attack. And then it scans over to see her mother and her in the ambulance with him, and she's just staring at him. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's not surviving this. She's in the ambulance with him.
A lot of the powers are directly working in that psychic space, definitely affecting her mind is affecting his mind. There are very few times where you see actual breaking of the laws of physics and things. It's interesting to see how much they tend to stick things into that mind space.
Mm-hmm. Like, because she's. I mean, I guess though with the heart attack though, that's definitely life. I mean, she's like, the reason why life jumps into my head for that spell particularly is because when we were playing the game,
we were playing in my game, right?
And we were in Florida, and we were going after the bad guy. I didn't get to do it, but I so badly wanted to use life and squish his heart by concentrating on a grape.
Squish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to do it. Other people got to kill him instead, and that's okay. But yeah, so when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's the life spell.
Is this the one Adam killed?
Yes.
Yeah. That was the lighting the country club on fire.
And then I would say also in there, obviously, with the electricity going haywire, that's forces.
Yeah.
It's interesting about the concentration spell that it was, or it's interesting about the heart attack spell that it was a kind of a concentration.
That's what it looked like.
To simulate that, I probably would use the rolls, which is a kind of obscure part of spellcasting in Mage.
Yeah. Oh, but this also is a plot development in the sense that because of his death, which Nancy did not know this, so wasn't done for financial reasons, but from his job, he actually had really good life insurance that Nancy and her mom got, so they got to buy their own place. It looked like their own place. They were in an apartment, but I'm assuming, kind of like in Frasier, that she bought the condo. I might be wrong, but it's beautiful. It's white, barely furnished, but tons of windows.
Yeah, this is. I think I've talked about this earlier. There's an element to the craft where there's a certain morality play, especially with Nancy. I really wish that that particular element, her mother and her backstory, was a little less melodramatic.
Predictable. It's one of those ones where I get what you're saying, and this is exactly why I would love to see this redone as a mini series, because each one of the women have things going on in their life that has them make the choices that they make and how the magic affects them the way that it does, that we don't get to dive into.
Right.
So it keeps everything on a shallow level, because what are you going to do with 4 main characters with a little over an hour?
Yeah, I agree. I like Nancy so much that like that element kind of like I wish that was more polished.
No, I agree. I completely agree. Nancy wants to have all this power, or needs to have all this power, because she feels like she has no power in her everyday life. Now, that's not explicitly said, but she is from a poor family with an abusive stepfather. It definitely, the house has leaks in it. Like, even in her room, they show water dripping from the ceiling, like on her bed. She ends up putting her head there and lets the water just drip on it, as a sign of depression. So she has a lot of heavy things going on, and she just wants to feel like she has some sort of ability to control that, which is why she wants the power to do that.
She has a desire to ascend her average or below average life, wanting to gain that which she never had. And you see in this scene that she has now achieved it, and now she wants more.
She's achieved coming out of poverty for at least a time being, but she hasn't gotten
But this
power.
This is the taste of where hubris takes you, right? And that's a strong element of stories about magic. Is that once you get what you want next, and that desire for power to use the power you have only makes you want to use more and gain more. Where does that lead?
So once again, the women go to the occult shop because you need to gather supplies. Gosh, I need more supplies. I only have white candles. This is the same scene where Sarah asks the witch who owns the occult shop, how do you dispel a love spell? Nancy is looking through books, and she finds one called Invocation of the Spirit. And while she's looking through it, there's a picture of like a storm that she focuses on, and the clouds and the storm start moving. You kind of hear the thunder a little bit. There's a flash of lightning, and Nancy just knows she needs to have this book. And what I think
it's a true grimoire.
And what I think is also telling of this scene is Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle tend to do the 5-finger discount. And this time, Nancy goes right up to the register and pays for the book, which to me is an indication of actually taking it seriously. Like, she could have stolen the book, But by paying for it, by doing that in an honest way, it does show a bit of respect towards the book and what she is about to do. Even though the lady does warn her a little bit, oh man, you're going to invoke the spirit? You must be a very powerful witch. And she's like, mind your own business, just give me the book. So she did try and warn her, but I do think it's telling that she actually paid for it.
In magical practice and magical thinking, intentionality is everything. The way you approach a spell from the way your mind is interacts with how that is going to manifest. A spell done out of love versus one out of anger has vastly different results. Mm-hmm. Now, this isn't related to how, say, the game Mage works, though it is true from the mindset of someone who is casting. The imagos, the spells that you shape are directly related to what you want and how it is manifested.
Yep. Cool. So, of course, the next scene is them preparing to invoke the spirit. So
going out into the wilderness to a beach, or
yes,
yeah,
this one's the beach. So the first time they went out to kind of a meadowy, wooded area, and this time they go to the beach. They each have a representation of their corners, although I have to say...
To the watchtowers, they actually invoke watchtowers, which I found to be, especially given the importance of watchtowers in Mage, that I imagined that a similar ritual would be performed, calling out to the 5 watchtowers.
Mm-hmm. I do remember when that part came up and they called the watchtower, you were perked up like, watchtowers! That's in Mage! It's like, yeah, no, Mage did their research with stuff when they did stuff, which is one of the reasons I love the game. So each of the women have a symbol of the 4 corners. Supposedly, this is where I have an issue with the symbols, so I don't totally get all of them. One of them, which Nancy has, is a snake, which I would figure is Earth, but it doesn't end up being Earth. So Nancy has a snake. I believe it's... Actually, I can't remember, besides Nancy, I can't remember who has what. I should have written that down. That's okay. But there's a bird, a butterfly, a snake, and a fish. So fish, definitely water. I would figure snake would be earth, but having 2 things that fly, it's like, isn't that both air? Where's fire in this? But
I think the snake is fire.
Okay.
And the butterfly was earth.
And the bird is air.
Let me look it up.
I guess butterfly would be earth because they pollinate.
They have a bird for air, butterfly for fire, fish for water, and snake for earth.
I was right, the snake was for earth. But yeah, Nancy is south, right? Or she's east.
Well, if she's the snake, then
she's north. But
she's not north. Sarah's north. See, this is where the scene bothered me a little bit, is because they didn't do that very well. The symbolism wasn't carefully orchestrated. Anyways, though, they each bring an animal. Rochelle brings a clownfish. Bonnie brings a butterfly. Sarah brings a bird. And Nancy brings a snake. Which the symbolism's a little off there, because they're not bringing the symbols that match their watchtowers, which I find a little weird.
Yeah.
Because Nancy should have brought the butterfly, and Sarah should have brought the snake, because the snake is an earth symbol. But anyways, before we get into that too much.
So what did Nancy bring?
The snake. So Nancy starts off by raising her arms to the heavens, and I think she has the athame in her hand. Let me double check. Yes, she does. She has the athame in her hand. She reaches her arms to the heavens, and she says, I call upon the guardians of the watchtowers of the east, powers of air and invention. Telling here, she starts off with, hear me, and then goes to, hear us, which kind of reminded me a little bit of Hocus Pocus, when Winifred says that her life will be mine. I mean, ours. Then the camera moves to Bonnie, whose arms are up in the air, and she says, I call upon the watchtowers of the south.
Hear us.
Then Rochelle, with her arms up in the air, says, I call upon the guardians of the watchtowers of the west, the powers of water and intuition. Then we move to Sarah, who has her arms up in the air, and says, I call upon the guardians of the watchtowers of the north, the power of mother and earth. And then I forget exactly what they're chanting, But they are chanting as, the camera gets all going around faster and faster and making it look like, magic is coming up and kind of making it a little chaotic. And then the lightning and everything that's been crashing all around them hits Nancy and her athame. And then everything goes black. Then it's the next morning and Sarah, Bonnie, and Rochelle are all waking up on the beach. And slowly each one of them notice that Nancy is walking towards them on the water and just talking about how she can feel Manon. She can feel the god that they call to inside her. And she's very exhilarated. And then there's a whole bunch of sirens and noises. And as they go a little further on the beach around these rocks, there are all of these washed up sharks. And Nancy is just, they're my gift, which is okay, that is a interesting gift. They're my gift from Menon, this god. and the other three look a little disturbed, especially Sarah.
So this makes me think about, in Mage, supernal summoning. So in first edition Mage, this was actually a spell, but it's now just a thing that mages can do where they call upon a supernal entity and can bring it forth from the supernal realm. It requires a complex ritual, and when the supernal being comes forth, besides being able to talk to it, they can request its boon, some sort of ability or some sort of supernatural effect. It seems to me that Menno or whatever was brought forth and its power granted to them, and Nancy specifically. The same being could leave its sign. The abilities of the supernal entities are basically magic without limit. It would have the capacity to alter the world in a lot of ways, and leaving a sign of a successful summoning as an after effect would just, I think, what the sharks are. Especially because they don't remember interacting with this supernal being. They just kind of woke up. So to me, that means that whatever its trial was, it was erased from their consciousness. And then it left its sign to show that to them that it had worked. The interesting thing about the rituals involved in summoning is that it involves taking the area of the summoning and you have part of the rituals have to be transforming the area to be more like the supernal realm of the thing you're summoning. So your ritual circle would end up looking more like if you're an acanthus creating Arcadia in that area, so that the being, when it comes in, fits. Them casting on that beach with the storm, that has almost a sensation of the ether. It definitely gives otherworldly vibes when they're doing the spell. Yeah, so even the title of this, the book they got was the ritual performing invoke the spirit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're talking about bringing that spirit into the world, crossing that boundary between this place and the other place, and bringing it forth. Such a thing is going to have immense consequences.
The next scene is all four women in the car. And Nancy is driving, Sarah's in the front seat, and Rochelle and Bonnie are in the back seat. This is when Sarah brings up her concerns about what they've been doing, because the spells aren't necessarily working the way she thought that they would. She wanted Chris to love her, but she didn't mean for him to be so obsessed with her that he stopped having any personality of his own, coming to her house at 3:00 in the morning and everything. And also what they did to Laura. Her hair is falling out and everything. She's basically bald now. And she just didn't realize how the reality of the way the spells are affecting the world is really bothering her. I mean, heck, Nancy accidentally killed her stepfather. It's all too much. Nancy took great umbrage to this and started taking chances with the red lights to basically show Sarah how much power she has. So they were driving towards the red light, and she's like, red means stop, right? And she just keeps speeding, and then all of a sudden it turns green, and she can go through it. And she keeps picking up speed and doing this with like 2 or 3 more red lights in front of them. And Sarah is getting more and more scared and upset as they're going, until finally Nancy, on purpose, runs a red light. And it's all just basically to show Sarah how much power she has and to stop complaining, because, yeah.
This spell actually exists in Mage. I'm sure they took it directly from this movie. Red light, green light. It's a time 1 effect. I hate that spell.
It's a great fate spell.
But yeah, except it's time.
Okay. It's a time spell, but okay.
Well, it should be a fate spell because its effects don't really like. Okay, so theoretically, time could be used to slow down things, the timing, so that you always get, like, the car slows down, so you always go through, or time you can see, you actually know that you have the like, you can see the future, so you could always make sure you pass it. But that's not really how the spell is. More like fortuitously, every time you would be stopped, you aren't.
Yeah. I mean, it's the second I saw the light turned green for Nancy to go through, I went, red light, green light!
Yeah, it's really cool for the visual. Like in this scene, it's actually really cool. It shows her how powerful she is, that she doesn't have to care about laws or consequences. This is a great scene about what happens when a mage is losing wisdom, when magic becomes the solution to all of your problems, and how magic is corrupting Nancy. And the other girls are just along for the ride.
Yeah, because in the car, when Sarah's like voicing her concerns, they are just as dismissive of her concerns as Nancy was. So this is what causes Sarah to talk to Chris. She needed to talk to somebody, another friend, because all of her friends are her coven. So she needed to talk to Chris, but it went poorly. And then she went to Rochelle's, to a friend where, I was just almost sexually assaulted, or almost, basically, she was sexually assaulted, but she got away. And Nancy was very, very upset by this. It definitely triggered her for some reason. And Nancy immediately leaves the house to go confront Chris, as Sarah is begging her not to leave. She knows Chris is at a party, and she goes to that party, and Chris is actually very happy when he hears that Nancy is there, because he's hoping that also means that Sarah is there. And Nancy takes him up to a bedroom and starts talking about how they used to have a relationship. And he's loyal to Sarah, which is nice, but he's also extremely disrespectful to Nancy. Telling her, yeah, I remember we used to have a relationship, and I try and forget that it ever happened. He's definitely not careful with people either, and he rejects her. She gets upset and glamours herself into Sarah, and he's like, oh, you're Sarah, cool, yeah, I'm all here for it. And they start making out, and then Sarah, Bonnie, and Rochelle come bursting into the bedroom and see Sarah, and then immediately turns to Nancy, and Chris is all like, oh my god, what the hell is going on here? And he gets completely freaked out, and he's like, you're a witch to Nancy. He goes, yeah, I'm a witch, and so are all of us, and the only reason you're into Sarah the way that you are is because she put a love spell on you. And Chris is confused, and Nancy confronts him about what a terrible person he is to women, and basically he definitely mistreated her. They had a relationship in the past. She gave herself to him emotionally, and he wasn't actually giving back to her. We don't know that story, but the way Nancy's reacting to this situation is definitely a woman who's had sexual trauma from this particular individual. And then, so she confronts Chris and tells him these things in terms enough that I understand what was going on, but it's not like she directly says that they had what kind of relationship they had. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And then that sets her off. She's like, you're sorry. And she starts gliding across the floor with her toes just on the floor, and the windows fly open, And mentally, she just pushes him. He flies out the window and lands on the concrete at the bottom and dies.
Mm-hmm.
Her magic is taking control of her rather than her controlling her magic. Further sign of wisdom loss. The magic is beginning to degrade her mind as well.
So, obviously, the first one was a glamour, and that is mind or life, or both, mind or life.
The other one, yeah.
A life can create a living illusion, make your face change. Because we talked about this earlier when we talked about the glamour with the hair, and then mind. You could do something similar with a very vulgar prime spell.
Something that I've noticed with Nancy, going on to not working through her trauma and protecting herself with her magic, when she's emotional, when she hits that threshold, forces pops out of her in force. She starts to slide across the floor, hovering, almost fully hovering off the ground. Forces. The doors swing open. Forces. Chris flies out the window and onto the hard concrete.
Yeah.
Forces. Same thing happened when she accidentally killed her stepfather or her mother's boyfriend, whatever he was. No, stepfather. If she got the insurance money, it was more likely stepfather. Forces.
So her degrading wisdom, when a mage becomes enraptured, when they've lost all of their wisdom, their magic begins to act on its own. Though we could also talk about that this may be Nimbus kind of effects, leaking out magic from her. And as you lose wisdom, your magic leaks out more and more. The nature of those effects begin to get crazier and more random. But we could say she's, improvising some forces spells, telekinesis, force pushing kind of effects.
Mm-hmm.
Levitation's another force.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Thing. An element to the show that makes me think from the Acanthus path. So for the Acanthus, their inferior is forces. The idea being that forces is used as in a story to highlight the intensity and the importance of the moment. And with both her power coming out, forces in this moment, and later on near the end of the movie, lightning and forces is often used to put a punctuation on power and strength and destiny. Yeah, so the story kind of has an acanthus-y vibe to it.
There's a lot of destiny in there a little bit, like Sarah coming, them meeting, because they were waiting for a fourth, and Sarah ends up being their fourth. Yeah. So all of these things, Sarah starts to become afraid of Nancy. And so she decides to do a binding spell. And I really like the way they did this. So Sarah is sitting at the edge of, I believe it's her pool, but it's empty. Anyways, she's sitting at the edge of a pool, like an actual pool. And she has a ribbon, a thing of ribbons, on a spool. And she has a picture of Nancy. And she's wrapping the ribbon around Nancy. And it's a white ribbon, which I actually think that's probably significant too. The color that you use in your spells has meaning. And she's wrapping that ribbon around saying, I bind you, Nancy, from doing harm against yourself and harm against others. I bind you, Nancy, from doing harm against yourself and harm against others. And what I visualize is that she does that spell and wraps that photo up until that spool of ribbon is gone. So she's doing that for a long time. They don't actually show that in the movie, but that's how spells work in my head. Or not how it works in my head. That's how spells typically work. So that's how, it takes time. It's like it's a yantra.
Yeah, you've got to use the yantra to its fullest. The key for every yantra is that focusing on the intent and the purpose of the spell, every element, because it becomes your mental image, your imago of the spell.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there any spell in Mage where you can bind another spellcaster?
No, but if there is, it's a prime spell. If you're trying to manipulate their casting, you could use, could put a spell on someone that the spell has specific effects. They harm against yourself and others.
Mm-hmm.
You could put an element in someone's mind that prevents them from acting in certain ways. So that would work in a similar fashion.
A fate spell.
To ensure that they don't have the opportunities to do so, which is actually,
or
I think,
if they do it, then something bad would happen.
Yeah, they could a fate with some consequences that putting a hex on if you try to fight the destiny that you're putting onto someone.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. I think as we see go later on, I think the fate the fate version is probably what's being done here.
Mm-hmm. The next scene that we see is later on that night. Sarah's lying in bed, sleeping. When, is it a dream? Is it real life? Her doors to her balcony swing open, and flying in, cackling, are Nancy, Rochelle, and Bonnie. And they come at her, and it looks like Nancy, at least, is actually choking her, while the other two are laughing beside her. I can't tell if all three of them are choking her, but Nancy is definitely in there. And then she wakes up, so it looks like it was a dream. But the next day at school, Sarah's wearing a turtleneck, which makes me wonder if she actually has marks on her neck. But they don't actually tell us that. But entering somebody's dream.
It's a Mind 3 spell. It's not that difficult. You can actually make the connection through the astral, so you don't actually even need to use a sympathetic connection. You can just find your way into their dream.
Mm-hmm. Then the next day at school, Sarah is very upset. I mean, one, she was attacked in her dreams, and she knows that it very well was real. Chris just died, so everyone's like looking at her because they know of their romantic...
Well, the way he was behaving around her recently.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, made it very public.
Mm-hmm. So she ends up going and hiding in one of the bathroom stalls, and while she's hiding in there, the lock slides open. Forces, most definitely. And of course, it's Nancy. And the door opens, and they're like, hey, why are you hiding in here, pretty much? And Nancy's like, I know that you want to leave the coven. And she's like, I have not said one thing about wanting to leave. And she goes, no. And then she taps her head. But you've thought it, implying that she can read Sarah's thoughts.
Yeah, more mind magic.
More mind magic. What number?
Apprentice.
And of course, as Nancy, Rochelle, and Bonnie leave the bathroom, Nancy tells Sarah to stop putting binding spells on her. Meaning, I know, and it didn't work. Which, by the dream, we know it didn't work. And Bonnie taunts her by saying, how are you sleeping? With that knowing little smirk at the end. Basically saying, yeah, we're fucking with your dreams, and we're making your life hell. You better shape up. You better get in line. Which terrifies Sarah even more.
She is risking especially for the other girls, the power they have. Mm-hmm. Because they still... Nancy might not require the other girls, but the other girls require them.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nancy now doesn't because she has the power, but yeah. Sarah, in desperation, goes to the only place she knows that could help her, the occult shop. And she talks to the shop owner, the witch there, and tells her what's going on. The coven that she's in and how they're attacking her and she doesn't know what to do. And the witch is like, you know what? Come behind this curtain, and it's her sanctum. There's a pentacle on the ground and candles lit and stuff. And she tells Sarah that in order to fight Nancy, you need to take in the power. You need to invoke the spirit. And she's like, I can't invoke the spirit. Look what it did to Nancy, She's like, you can do it. Your mother was a witch, So then it comes into some of that stuff. And she's like, I can tell your mother was a witch and you have her power. And so Sarah just, agrees. She gets the confidence to start trying to invoke the spirit. But then there's a burst of fire that comes through the shop all the way to the back, scaring the daylights out of Sarah. She freaks out and she says that she has to go. Even though the shop is perfectly fine, it was definitely an illusion, or the other witch was able to dispel it. I'm pretty sure it was an illusion. Sarah freaks out and runs away. Illusion. Is that a mind spell?
Mm-hmm.
I'd figure. Because you're tricking the mind into seeing something that's not there.
Yeah, you can do... I would say, actually seeing something that isn't there. Prime can actually be used in this way. You can, so manipulations of mana can create objects. So it's not hard to imagine that you create
it's displays of power.
Right.
Display of power, whatever.
Yeah, displays of power is a prime spell that makes whatever you're imagining appear as if it were real. Okay. It's used in mage duels.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Cool. Okay. Yep. And that does seem like it either mind or that, is it Prime you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Prime because we haven't used a lot of that in this yet, so...
It'd be like Prime and Forces.
Prime and Forces, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Nancy's very Force...
It'd be Prime to use displays of power and the Forces for the Imago as well.
The shopkeeper, the witch, tries to convince Sarah not to leave, but Sarah is so scared by that fake explosion that she doesn't stay. I don't even think she fully stays long enough to fully notice that it was an illusion. Like, maybe she did. She just ran out of there so fast, and she ran home. When she got home, she is yelling for her father and her stepmother because she's absolutely terrified, but they are nowhere to be found. And then the phone rings. She picks it up, and it's Nancy, who, I'm sorry, at this point, don't trust anything that she says. That was the first thought that comes to my head. But she's sounding all concerned on the phone. And she's like, hey, so your father and stepmother thought that you left, so they got on a plane to go chase you down and turn on the TV. Oh no, the news says that plane crashed. So, of course, that sends Sarah into a frickin' panic attack. Trigger warning, real quick. While they are preparing to do the spell on the beach, Sarah and Nancy are talking, and Sarah tells Nancy about the time that she tried to take her own life. At that time, she was having some hallucinations, actually, of bugs and snakes. And even when she opened up her eyes, she could still see the snakes, and she tried to take her life. And Nancy actually was offended that snakes would scare Sarah so much because they are a powerful creature that should be respected. Then, back in the house starts to swarm with snakes and things. The bars on the windows and stuff turn into snakes. And she tries to run out of the house, but there's all of these snakes all over the stairs. And so she runs back in the house, and they're coming from, the vents and everything and the windows. So she runs up to her room, and she runs in the bathroom. It's coming out of the sink, and it's in the toilet, and rats fall on her, and just freaking out. She falls on the ground, and then all of a sudden, they're all gone. And Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle are there. And I believe at this point, they are floating in the air, laughing and taunting her. All right, I think this is a good place to stop because we have 3 spells: the news, the vermin, and the appearing and floating.
Yeah, there's the fake... Well, we don't know it's fake yet.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the spells, and this is spoilers, obviously.
Yeah.
So...
But yeah, it's a fake, like a glamour effect, sort of, to see a false reality about the plane crash and all this stuff, because it didn't actually happen.
It's a hallucination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what, mind?
Yeah, it's actually a specific mind spell. Yeah.
Cool.
It is adept. You get to control the perspective of the person that you're casting the spell on.
Okay. Yep. So all the snakes and spiders and maggots and things, mind?
Yeah, we've seen them use mind control effects, so they may be entirely fabricated by them.
Mm-hmm.
More hallucination effects.
And I do think that Nancy is purposely using the information that she had found out about her and what caused her to break, and she's doing it to her again. Like, she's putting her in her darkest place she's ever been on purpose.
Right.
The next one is just them appearing, which, I don't know, space.
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't there a second ago. What space?
Co-location or teleportation. Either way, they need to have some way of sensing the location, I guess.
Yeah, invisibility or teleportation.
Oh, invisibility is a good one too.
Yeah, because they could have been there for a long time, casting the spell always behind her.
True, very true. And of course, floating forces.
Right.
The next thing is when the women are floating in the air, and Nancy starts really mentally torturing Sarah. She tells Sarah that she is going to commit self-harm, and Sarah says, "No, I'm not." And Nancy inflicts slashes on her wrists, and Sarah runs upstairs and grabs a towel to try and staunch the blood.
Importantly,
it's cut the wrong way.
Yeah, she didn't do it right.
Also, the fact that Sarah knows the difference was established earlier.
Mm-hmm. And it is an interesting choice. It's an interesting choice. I noticed it when it happened.
It's one of the reasons why the spell can't work, because she knows the difference between reality and the spell. She can see through it.
I like that. That's an interesting way of looking at that. Cool. Because she's fighting her reality through.
Mm-hmm. It shows that and they do throw out that she does see the truth. It's why if Nancy has awakened and Sarah is awakening, then it shows that she's on the path towards truth, towards the supernal.
Cool.
Mind you, that's also talking about some of the destiny elements of the story. It's directly connected. You're the most powerful witch I've ever seen. You're about to awaken.
That's when you're close to the supernal.
Right. Now, I don't like that specifically because it's tied towards some kind of family element, and it means that the whole she's a special bloodline in me. It's the guardian thoughts in me of the idea of there being a magical messiah that I just go. Ugh.
They weren't taking it that far, but I understand you blanch at that sort of thing.
Though I think the Guardian's actual response to if Sarah is the chosen one, they would attack her instantly.
Yeah.
Their job is to test the chosen one to prove that the chosen one is real.
There's also the note that was written before her wrists.
You're right. I forgot that before she ran upstairs and her wrists were cut. Nancy also points to a note that appears on the floor in front of Sarah that basically says, "I'm sorry, but I committed self-harm." And Sarah looks at that note and goes, "I did not write that." Which also leads back to your thing of she's fighting, her reality is still overlapping in there. Partly because when I looked at that note, it looked like the writing was a little different between the "I'm sorry, I have to go" and the signing of the name. The writing just didn't quite match up. In going into she's fighting her reality through, I kind of like that now. It adds to that. I think that's kind of cool.
Uh-huh.
As Sarah is holding the towel to her wrists, she lays on the ground. And it's at this moment she has to decide if she's going to invoke the spirit or give in to Nancy. Because those are kind of her only two options to fight her. And at that moment, there's kind of a wind in the air. And you see the picture of her mother that's on her nightstand move, with the wind blowing her mother's hair and dress. And then Sarah starts to chant, "I call upon the guardians of the watchtower of the north, the power of Mother and Earth. I invoke thee." And then she chants that over and over and over. While downstairs, Nancy wants to know if Sarah has finally succumbed to her wounds and tells Rochelle to go upstairs and check. And Rochelle's like, "I don't want to go up there and check." And Nancy's like, "If you don't go, I'm going to kill you," which is such a wonderful friend thing. And Bonnie goes, "I'll go with you." So Bonnie and Rochelle go up the stairs to go check on Sarah. And Sarah hears them. And then she starts chanting something that the shopkeeper had told them, which went, "By the power of 3 times 3, make them see, make them see." And she chants that over and over again. And then Bonnie and Rochelle see their reflections in a mirror in the hallway. Bonnie's burn scars came back even more. They're up now her arm and over her face. And Rochelle's hair had fallen out. And they realized, they said, "By the power of 3 times 3. And they weren't taking any chances. They were done. They ran out of the house. And Nancy's like, "Where are you going?" So this is definitely an illusion. Mind?
Yeah, that makes sense.
To me, at this point in the story, she's holding on to some greater truths, communicating a specific message, and how that message is communicated might not be up to her. It could be in the a high prime effect.
But isn't Prime about showing truth?
They're seeing how the consequences of them action. Let them see.
True. Okay. I like that too. That works.
I would say, based off of the aesthetics of the character, there is an Obermost element to Sarah, both in Forces and in Prime, while Nancy exhibits Mastigos, mind control from a distance.
Yeah, because the only time she really uses Forces is either when she's floating or when her emotions exploded and she, blew some of the fuses in her home. Oh, and when she pushed Chris out. So when her emotions, peak, that's when you see Forces. But when she's purposely using her magic for what she wants, it's mind. That's interesting with Nancy.
So she has an emotional connection with the arcana of Forces, as opposed to a more direct, willful control over mind.
Interesting.
Back to Sarah's illusion spell, it could also have just been a fate, miracle spell to make them have a hallucination.
Okay. What I like about that is there's a lot of fate following Sarah as it is with the snakes and everything. And she was already hallucinating about snakes. So when that man came in with the snake in the beginning, that's one of the things that really freaked her out, right? And then Nancy's connection, to the snakes and everything. So it's there's a fate element to that. And so fate with Sarah, I can see that. There's still there's a connection there.
Yeah.
Now Nancy has to be the one to go upstairs. So she does. She goes upstairs, and Sarah is still lying on the ground, and we see her wrists heal. Then, in the mirrors and pictures in her room, a mist, like a fog, rolls into all the pictures. And when Nancy enters Sarah's bedroom, she's no longer lying on the ground. And Nancy's like, "Where are you?" And she walks up to this mirror, and then she turns around to look at the rest of the room, and her reflection turns, and we see that it's Sarah. And then she touches Nancy on the shoulder as she walks out of the mirror. Wrist healing. Life.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or sort of just ending or kind of fighting back against that spell that Nancy
Prime.
was. Yeah.
The truth.
Or simply ending the mind effect that if the scars could be artistically representing a desire to kill herself, also a mind effect, and we've seen them recede, especially with that they're cast wrong, that as the spell is invalidated, it is removed.
Mm-hmm. Cool. The mist coming in through all the pictures and Sarah disappearing off the floor. I don't know. The mist, is that a type of yantra or something? The storminess of it?
Mist. Well, in the story, I think that's the storm connects to Manon, which is their god of magic. So it's showing his magical presence in the room.
You know what? You're right. Because when Nancy called to him, there was a storm and she was hit by the lightning. So that is the sign that Sarah has taken him in. I didn't realize that until just now. There it is. So when that fog and that storm moves through all the pictures and mirrors, that is him. Okay. So what would that be?
I think it's just a representation of the supernal or man, I guess, that she's using for the spell.
Yeah. I like that representation of the spirit, or of the magic.
Because in this context, it is a specific kind of deity.
You know what else? You already said that she had a very Obermost, very Forces.
Very priestly.
Storms are very Forces.
Yeah, she takes on she takes on the aspects of the High Priestess of Magic with both the authority, Prime, and Forces, the direct power of magic.
Coming out of the mirror. Space?
Yeah.
Well,
maybe.
So yes, space would be, if you're trying to replicate that effect, jump into a mirror, jump out. If you could create a demi-plane reflected in the mirror, which all this requires is space, you could step in and step out. In this case, if we liken this moment to the end of an awakening, becoming a true mage, then it could be that she's stepping out of the supernal, out of the as a representation of her coming out of her supernal journey.
She journeyed to the watchtower, she signed her name, and now she's coming back.
Right.
Cool. All right, I like that. Now Sarah has the upper hand, and you can tell she is not scared, and she gives Nancy a message that Manon is not happy with her. He is not happy with the way she's used the magic he gave her. And as she's saying these things to her, bugs start forming on Nancy, coming off her cheek and out of her jacket. And then it's like her feet become bugs and she falls down and her fingers become snakes and she's screaming as Sarah is taunting her.
Mine, I guess, probably.
Especially because it does go away, like the other ones. But she turns her fingers into snakes. She takes that power back. I can create this illusion in these bugs. These bugs, these snakes, no longer have any power over me. There you go. The snake thing, to the conclusion. Talking through this has actually helped me with this, because I never thought it, like, I can actually see how the snakes and everything followed her through until the very end, and then she got mastery over them. I can't believe it took me that long.
Yeah, that is an interesting perspective on it.
Nancy is thoroughly humbled, and she apologizes. She's like, look, I know I've been a bitch. I am so sorry. Just, I'm going to go home. Let's forget anything's happened. And Sarah goes, I bind you, Nancy, from doing harm against yourself and harm against others. Oh, and Nancy is like, what? And then she chants it over and over again. Nancy uses the last bit of power she has to just fly at Sarah. She pulls the knife back and she flies and takes them both and slams against the wall. And Sarah's trying her best to fight her off. Everything is flying in her bedroom. There's just wind. And then her dresser comes flying at her and Nancy. And Nancy gets out of the way and Sarah's there as it crushes into the wall. And Nancy thinks, success. What's that?
She uses forces to both accelerate herself to launch her with an attack into Nancy.
Then Nancy pulls the dresser away in order to assess the damage, but she doesn't immediately see Sarah. And as she pulls the pillows and magazines and blankets out of the way, she finds Sarah's empty clothes. And she's like, tricky, tricky, tricky. But she does not think that Sarah has left. She thinks Sarah is still there, or at least she wants to test her theory. So she pulls her knife back and goes to stab the clothes. And Sarah appears and kicks Nancy with an incredible force all the way down the hall into a mirror. And Nancy falls to the ground. And then Sarah begins chanting again. I bind you, Nancy, from doing harm against yourself and harm against others. The empty clothes. They are pretty flat. But she is definitely still there. That could be, I guess she could have morphed herself into a different space in the house and then morphed herself back. I don't know if that would be space somehow.
That would be space, yes.
That would be space. Or if it's an illusion where the clothes look flat even though they're not.
So space would work, mind would work, controlling perceptions, then...
Some kind of space effect makes the most sense to me, because it also would defend against the dresser actually slamming into the wall.
Oh, you are right. So it's like she's into some sort of crack or hole in the wall, and then back into her clothes to kick Nancy with force, and I believe force is, into the mirror down the hall.
It could be a complex life and matter spell where she's literally shrunk down, but hiding somewhere in her own clothing.
Cool. I like that too. Mini me! And then the kicking her, I already said it, forces. And the binding spell. I already know there's not really a way to bind people in Mage, but you can disrupt their magic. You've said that before.
Prime spell to... Basically, you're making it so that their magic can't manifest. There isn't a spell, at least not written, that would do that, but based off of reading Imperial Magic, that Archmages can choose an area that allows certain people to cast spells and other people to not cast spells in that area. I imagine a curse against someone with that level of power is possible. I think that's not in the game because it's kind of unfair. The first mage that does it wins.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So I think that's why it's not in the spell book, or why it's limited to
powers of archmages.
Mm-hmm. We do know the spell worked because the last scene of the movie, we see Nancy in an insane asylum, insisting that she has spells, insisting that she has magic. But she's strapped down, no one believes her, and they're keeping her well sedated. I feel bad for her. Once again, I wish that we could go into her mental state, her issues, and see her get therapy or something, but that's okay.
Yeah, the binding spell could have just had the power to do that because of Manon at the time.
That's true,
manifested.
too. Because he didn't want her having his magic anymore because she wasn't using it properly.
Right, so it could be part of the awakening, a one-time special effect.
In the next scene, Sarah is in her driveway. Looks like she's getting some stuff out of her trunk or something. And we see her father. And this is the first time that we really know as the audience that the plane crash was an illusion. But Bonnie and Rochelle walk up her driveway. And they tell her, hey, we're really sorry about what happened. Your father, that thing was just an illusion. It's yeah, obviously, because my father is here. But whatever. And then they were like, hey, we don't have any magic anymore. And we were wondering if you did. And, if you want to, cast spells with us or just call to the Four Corners sometime, we're here. So then Sarah says, don't hold your breath. And they were like, ha. She probably doesn't have any powers anyway. And they turn around to skip away. And then Sarah gathers a little storm over this tree. And this wind comes and blows Sarah's hair back as this lightning bolt comes down and hits the branch of the tree.
I mean, if you wanted to blast something from lightning, that's just forces.
I must say, once again, forces. Obermos, you are right. She is such an Obermos.
She is. She's a high priestess, while Nancy is Mastigos. It's just, I would not be surprised if the designers of Mage the Awakening took direct inspiration from those characters as they began writing up the paths.
Cool. Yeah, no, I can definitely see it. All right. There is the craft seen through the game Mage the Awakening. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
Woohoo! I did too. That was a lot of fun. Especially because you're right, there is a lot of the same things. When you popped up and you're like, watchtowers, I'm like, oh my goodness, you're right. Yeah. Watchtowers.
I think that the craft is definitely an influence on Mage. Yeah. On Mage the Awakening.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please follow, give us a good rating on Spotify and all that, and share us with other people that you think might be interested in this tabletop game too. If you would like more of us, we are on Instagram under Mage Site, and we also have a Patreon also under the name Mage Site, so go check that out, where you can get the episodes early and ad-free. Well, especially ad-free. Until next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.